Let's fucking roll.
All right, everybody, welcome back to McBastard Studio. You're listening to the Salty MF GOAT. I'm Brad Banyas. I will be your host today. And today we're really excited to talk to Anthony Dyer. He's an ex-Air Force combat specialist, as well as he just wrote a book, and really want to highlight his book about his story, how the book came about, how it helped him, kind of the cathartic side of writing stuff down, but I'm going to let Anthony tell you that. So, Anthony, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me, Brad. It's an honor and privilege to be here, man.
Yeah, it's honor too. So you and I are from a similar area. So you're from Sylva, North Carolina. I was from Brevard and born in Asheville, North Carolina. So
I remember
Western
playing
Carolina pretty well.
Yeah. My mom went to actually Western Carolina University there, and I remember playing the Brevard Blue Devils, if I remember right, the high school there in basketball. So
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't there. I wasn't there long. I didn't grow up there. I grew up in Atlanta, but that was where the roots of the family were. So
oh yeah.
so for Moonchild, to me, I have no agenda where to go with this other than to tell your story about where you're at. You've got a good story about kind of growing up and having to go be a man and figure out what you want to do. So let's tell the salty audience a little bit just about you and your background.
Yeah, no problem. So from Western North Carolina, we sort of hit on a little bit earlier, but grew up deep in Appalachia. I like to say that small town of Sylva, and like at the time, it felt like you could throw a baseball across the whole town, and you know how that is, and the sense of community was strong, and everybody knows everybody's business, which could be either really good or really bad, right? And so a lot of that stuff, but yeah, it's really cool. Everybody had each other's back there growing up, and we played sports, basketball there for 2 years, my junior and senior year at Smoky Mountain High School, and I get to my senior year, and my dad gives me the typical dad talk of, you're about to be a man. It's time to either get a job, go to college, or get out. And so I was like, okay, didn't want to go to college. And I talked to a Army recruiter, and then a Navy recruiter was talking about being on a boat for 6 months. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to talk to my dad about sort of the quality of life of Air Force. He did, 4 years down in MacDill, well before I was born. But yeah, about, the good chow halls and golf clubs and TDY money, right? And I was like, I'm going to do the Air Force. And yeah. Yeah. So there I was on my first, fixed wing flight from Charlotte, North Carolina, where MEP's at, and then to San Antonio, Texas, up July 18th of 2000.
That's awesome, and that's awesome. And then you kind of show up there, and you were in several areas, right? You were in like munitions loading on the aircraft and helicopters and things, and you kind of progressed, right? I think you kind of took some other routes as well, right?
Oh yeah. And I, my first base, Seymour Johnson, I was a weapons loader, and they used to call us load toads. And what they mean by that, yeah. But basically, there was these hydraulic lift trucks that we would load even up to 2,000-pound bombs. And like in my case, for example, was the F-15E Strike Eagle. And yeah, so when the jammer and you put the legs out, it looks like a toad there. So they call us load toads. And I'd been there for for about a year and some change. Then that's when 9/11 happened. And then I just remember, I was on mid shift from 11 to 7 a.m. or whatnot. Then about 9 a.m. if I remember right, or 8 or 9, one of my buddies was beating on the door, and he's like, "Hey, Dyer, have you seen what happened?" I was like, "No, honestly, I haven't, man." And I walked in the day room and had a tube style TV there, and basically, the first plane had hit, and I, we saw the second one hit, and yeah, so I remember I remember that changed everybody in America, mentality at that point. And I knew it was on war wise. And I always, looked at those 343 firefighters that ran in that building that day, and like, what's different in those guys' DNA, right? And I always wanted to sort of to do more. I never felt like I'd done enough, and sort of test my mettle. So I did that job for 5 years, and then at my 5-year mark, I retrained into aircraft or Air Force firefighting. Did the ARF stuff there at Charleston Air Force Base, and long story short, did about 5 years of putting the wet stuff on the hot stuff there, and I still felt like I was really sitting on the sideline there, and and I was actually home on leave of all places, and I was at a pizza parlor, and I looked out in the same windy road, right, where like I see the same cracks in the road, and what I'm getting at is like, I was sitting on the sideline, and I didn't want to leave cracks, I want to leave craters, and that's when I finally decided to find the mighty AC-130 gunship, the H model Spectre gunship, and the 16th Special Operations Squadron.
That's awesome. Yeah, 9/11 was so impactful. I remember, we had an office and we had TVs throughout the office, and I walked out to grab coffee or something, and I saw the first plane like hit. I didn't really pay attention to it, man. I thought it was like, next Bruce Willis movie because it looked like so surreal. I
Oh
was
yeah.
like, what the hell? So I thought, oh, that's some kind of crazy movie they're coming out with. Came out again and saw it on another TV, and I was like, wow, they're really kind of promoting the shit out of this
Yeah.
this movie,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then I was like, holy shit, this is not a movie. Oh
Oh
my
yeah.
god, so I remember that, like, I think it was the point, everyone in America was kind of glued to that, and a lot of military guys that we talked to said you're sitting in the same situation you were, when that happened, it was like they're calling to go serve, so kudos to you on that.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. And I remember like loading the even the next day loading the F-15, the Strike Eagle, the fighter jet. They're like looking at those missiles, those air-to-air missiles, thinking like that was for Noble Eagle. Like if man, if one of these don't come back, that means it was on likely an airliner, right? Is what
Right.
I was thinking, and then but yeah, it was definitely a wake up call. And there was words like duty, honor, and like one of the core values of service before self. Like I didn't really know what that meant until
Yeah.
later in my career. Still.
Yeah. Well, man, a lot of that too with age, man.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
old now, but you don't really the older you get, the more experience you have. Like you spent 21 years, I believe, or 20 plus years in United States Air Force. I mean, the older you get, there is that wisdom does come too,
Oh
right?
yeah.
You start to realize what those old guys were talking about. You just have to kind of go through it and have your own horror stories, and that because you were in, Afghanistan, Iraq, and East Africa, correct?
Correct. Yes. Yeah, and what's talking about sort of the things you learn as you get older. It's a good way to put it. Like I remember when I first got to the Gunship Squadron, the 16th SOS, and you walk around that squadron, man. There's letters all around that squadron from like for example, one of the ones I'd always read was a ranger holding his baby girl, and basically thanking the Gunship Squadron for the rounds and the close air support, and
Yeah,
he was able to go home and see his baby girl, and you don't think about those letters when you're young, and
yeah,
you just want to go get in a fight, but you look at them a lot different when you have a family, when you get older, right? And that was sort of my why, my sense of purpose, was, I realized like not everybody could be like a special operator, right? The whole water's a game
right,
changer in itself, but I realized what I could do is, provide that close air support. And the whole identity was to, in my mind, make sure those guys got home to their families. And that was that why for all those years. And then when
yeah.
the dust settles, when you
That's
see the end
awesome.
of that tunnel and that's over, man, that's a real thing that, I think a lot of veterans struggle with, and a lot of people reached out to me after the book and even mentioned that. So,
Yeah, well, I bet they're happy as shit. That Delta Force or SEALs or who's ever Green Berets, who's ever on the ground. Air cover is life or death, right?
oh
You
yeah,
you get in a situation. I mean, so they're happy to have you. And it's funny. I think the one thing about the military working so in sync, we had an ex SEAL on, and he was talking about just how important it was to communicate across the different service groups, right? So if they had to, communicate to the Green Berets or whatever field guys, like you're responsible for giving the best communications you can, or someone dies, right?
oh
It's
yeah,
not like withholding information. You got to give them all the information, all the intel, everything you have, because as if you don't pass that, you don't pass it timely, that person could die. So I'm sure those guys are much grateful for you, and vice versa. So
yeah. It was a really awesome community, like you SOCOM in general, and there's the 5 soft truths there. One of those is humans are more important than hardware, and I always thought about that too.
yeah,
So there is that sort of my brother's keeper mentality or sheepdog mentality, whatever you want to call that, and at the other end of all this, there is the action part that I'd be lying if I said I don't miss, and like, there's nothing better like talking about, basically for providing that close air support for those guys when you're a few miles out and you start picking the enemy up on your sensors, right? And they
yeah,
feel your 4 fans of freedom. Like the Taliban knew
yeah.
about the gunship specifically, and you see them start running, they run like bees, and they know it's over, it's over, and
Oh
then
yeah,
yeah,
they're
and it's
amazing.
you chase that feeling, right? And I'd be lying if I said I didn't all those years.
Well, I mean, you look, I mean, look, it's your family, right? I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
if just the general population or civilian population or whatever, it's why sports and athletics are, in my mind, very similar to like the military. I mean, if we all were looking at it like, hey, this is my brother or sister, this is my American, whether it's your neighbor or
right.
some guy down the street or whatever, I think that unity in community is, you miss it, and
Oh yeah,
everyone we talk to like misses that, and you get into the real world and just the general world, and it's military is chaotic, but also the civilian world and real world is
yeah,
it's insane. There are no rules many times for people to follow or
right.
to have really kind of you talk about loyalty, right? You talk
Yeah,
about trust.
right.
You talk about, things like that. It's it's column fodder in some of the business worlds that you deal with. People don't give a shit. They do
Oh yeah.
whatever they want to do for the almighty dollar, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good way to put it, man. And I always thought about too. There's sort of a symbolic moment. Like I don't know if I put this in the book. I should have, but I didn't think about it till later. But you know, one of those things where you walk out of this MPF or this personnelist flight when you're filling out for your DD-214, right? And
Yeah.
a lot of times in these offices, a common thing is like you'll walk out, but there's no door handle on the other end of that door. So it's like sort of like the opposite of Hotel California. You can leave, but you can never
Yeah,
get back in.
that's
And
right.
yeah, yeah, man, and with that, like, that whole sense of identity, self my purpose, my why, and I had to get over myself a little bit too and realize, hey, like, this thing goes on, like, I know there's a saying, like, "What's this brief mortal life if not the pursuit of legacy?" But, like, to me, like, it's being the best dad I could be, best father I could be, best friend I could be to someone, and to
Yeah.
answer that phone when those phone calls happen, you know?
Yeah, no doubt, man. I mean, it's you kind of equate this stuff to the other world, like people are losing their jobs, create like thousands of people, right? I mean, it's
Right,
crazy, and it's kind of hard not to tie your identity to your service or what you did, as
right.
a gunner or whatever you did. It's kind of hard because you did. I mean, you did that shit for 20 years, right? You
Yeah,
did for a long time. So it's tough for people. I think I always try to tell people, your job sometimes is not really your identity, right?
right,
It's what
right,
your whole makeup is. Are you a good dad? Are you a good
right.
friend? Are you a good whatever? Are those things make up like truly a dude's or a woman's identity.
Oh,
And
yeah.
but when you're in that every day and you're, hey, this is what we do. We get up at this time, we dress this way, we do this. I can't imagine. And I've read some of it. I've not read the whole book. But Moonchild is such an amazing name. And I liked how you talked about you're born and full moon and,
Yeah,
tell everybody a little bit. I know it's kind of I love how you're like, it's kind of helping you. It's cathartic. It's helping you kind of get through some of the demons or things that you face. So, I don't want to steal your show, but let's just tell us
yeah.
about like, hey man, I sat down like I'm gonna write a book, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah, no problem. So I had, my last year so my 20th to 21st year, ended up starting, seeing a youth SOCOM psychiatrist and doing the prolonged therapy exposure, and there was different reasons, and, I was part of a CASEVAC mission that 4 or 5 year when I was in the Payhawk helicopters, and, sometimes in that life, you see unfortunately, the worst thing that could happen to someone, and,
yeah,
so I was dealing with that, and I went back to gunships in my last deployment to Iraq, and it was so slow. I think we shot once in, like, 90 days, and I could see that end of that light at the end of the tunnel, like
yeah,
this chapter is about to close in my life, and that hit
yeah,
me like a ton of bricks. And I remember getting back and, honestly, what started as a weekend drinking happened, 2 or 3 beers ended up being a pint a night with sleeping medication, you name it, man. And anybody that's ever been in that vicious cycle of alcoholism, like if you had that bug, I feel for you. I know how that is. And
yeah,
my wife gives me the ultimatum, like, "Hey, like, it's either me or your daughter or the bottle," and, thank God, and
yeah,
with his grace, I chose, my family, and so I went to see
absolutely,
the psychiatrist, and, we were doing this prolonged exposure therapy, and part of that process is getting comfortable being uncomfortable. You write your story out, and then you get to where you can basically say it without, being a big ball of emotions like I was. I remember the first time, to be honest with you, I told her that I cried, heck, she cried, the psychiatrist, and she was like, "You should tell your story over and over." And I was like, "No, there's always this quiet professional part of all this, right?" But when I got out and the dust settled, man, and I was craving that bottle, right? Like I'd pick up a pen and start writing things out, and I was like, maybe I should pay it forward. Maybe I should publish a book. And if one person gets help from this, and to me that's a blessing.
Yeah, I think it's awesome, and, I think it I don't know about courage, but it like, everyone's like, "Oh, it takes a lot of courage to do that stuff." I mean, reality of it is that this if you can get comfortable with it, the what we all realize and, you realize it, I realize it, we're not alone.
Right,
Like, we're not alone in the troubles, like, we're not alone in the alcoholism, we're not alone in, whatever, like, we think we are. Like, we
right.
think, like, we're shit, it's just me, right? I think if you get over that, like, shit, maybe this someone who won't come forward or can't come forward, this just breaks them out. I listened to a podcast, and I forget the gentleman's name. He was an ex-military guy, and he was interviewing, and it was really awesome to hear like him making comments on your book and the things that he wrote down and the things that helped him and the things that related. So I can tell you from the brief time I've just kind of tried to learn you and know about you, it's an impact, right? That's awesome.
Oh yeah, and to be honest with you, like it's been like like overwhelming the texts and the emails from men and
Yeah,
women I flew with, right? And like hey, like
yeah,
there's some of them are still in, and they're like, hey, I struggle with the same thing, and we're all very normal men and women doing very uncommon, not normal things, right? And so I think sometimes with the I don't know, the macho of it all, like I would forget that and that,
yeah,
the hardest thing for me, sort of like you were saying, was like to be vulnerable,
yeah,
to really let yourself out there. And as far as the symbology, I'm big on symbology in the book. And there's the moon part of it comes from that quote, "Stay wild, moonchild," and I remember thinking like flying in this, especially in Afghanistan and with the terrain on a full moon with that 100% lumen, those MVGs, it was like my lighthouse, my get well point. We often use that term flying a lot. And I started
right.
thinking too, like, on those worst nights, like flying, you got the weather's against you, the communication, the comms are out, emergency procedure, your gun jams, whatever the case is, on those very worst nights, that's when everybody depends on needs you to be your very best. And what I mean by all that is like, that darkest night, man, that's when that moon burns the brightest for me. And it's, you don't get to fall, you get to rise. So,
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, the name of the book that it's a great name and the
thank
meaning
you.
behind it's really awesome. I saw that quote. It's a great quote. I'm gonna get that and put it on our wall. It's a great
Awesome.
quote.
Thank you.
So, I think, you've been on a lot of podcasts. So I want to try to get some things, when you're, the biggest when you're out there and you're getting guys like whether you guys were flying in to get hurt guys and bring them back. And I know a story where you guys lost. You won a particular you won the Jolly Green right
Right.
rescue award, and one of our soldiers didn't make it. Like the team really takes like the
Oh yeah.
team even there, even though they weren't on the ground like when he got shot. I mean, everybody in there really takes accountability and is really feels guilty if that man doesn't make it. And
Yeah.
can you explain that? Because like you're like, we did everything we could, but the reality of that burden still sitting on your soul years later.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I tell people on that June 8th, 2018 in East Africa, we saw the very best side of combat search and rescue and the worst side, and this was the
Yeah,
pay off the helicopter part of my journey, and meaning we saved five lives, and then one American when he got back, unfortunately passed away on the operating table, and the mind is a very very tricky thing, and I remember. The guy on the left told me to check the bottom of the aircraft for bullet holes when we got back, and I come around to the aircraft's 12 o'clock, and the aircraft commander, the lead pilot's, he's like, his face is white, and I knew at that moment that an eagle, an
yeah,
American, had passed, and that when you get back and that adrenaline settles, man, that really hits you like a ton of bricks, man. And there's
yeah,
moments I talk about where like I remember they were trying to find enough OSB board to build a casket, for the guy, and that's someone's brother, someone's son, someone's friend that like I said, I didn't know what service before self meant until that day, and I witnessed that sacrifice,
yeah.
and that stays with me forever. And
Yeah, I
it
mean, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. Combat and stuff's horrible, and I mean, just everyone around trying to get that guy back, and I couldn't even imagine that. I couldn't imagine that.
oh yeah,
So, I
and that
mean, some of the, I mean, you obviously, for your service and what you've done, everyone's grateful and appreciative of that. Like, what kind of advice would you give that 17-year-old kid coming out of Sylva, North Carolina? That may wanna go into the services, like, what would you like, would you give them some words of wisdom, like how to get through or what to do? Just curious.
Yeah, I would, if I could sum it up in 2 words, I would say perseverance and repetition. And what I mean by that, I'm gonna paint a picture here, man. For my first flight, on the AC-130 gunship, it went so bad, man, to where the instructor said, "You're the reason you have to brief seatbelts on airliners," right? Like, you know, but but he but he taught me probably the most important lesson I've ever learned. And he saw me licking my wounds towards the end of this flight. It went so bad, we didn't get to shoot, and there's range conditions, all this stuff. And he's like, "What's the most important word in the dictionary?" I was like, "Man, I don't even know where I'm at right now." Right. And he said,
Yeah,
"Perseverance." He goes, "I want you to think about that, and come back, next flight ready to fight." And then, for the roots part of back home, I remember basketball camp. This guy came down. I think he coached at Lenore Ryan College at one point. This guy from New Jersey. But his whole thing when he would sit there in front of his free throw line and shoot, 100 free throws and make like every one, man. I swear I didn't miss. And his whole idea was the key to success in anything in life is repetition. And so I would tell that
yeah,
18-year-old kid, like, "Hey, man, like with those 2 words, like you can go anywhere. But also,
yeah,
there's going to get a point doing this in that world, you're going to have to take that tactical knee. When it happens, it
yeah,
happens.
yeah. Absolutely. Well, I think that's some really good advice. And so, what did you what are the some of the things, I don't know how old your daughter is, not really important for the audience, but just like uh, you know, being present with your daughter and being present now. I mean, you've come through some of the things, and you talked about alcoholism and things, and you chose your family, which is awesome.
Oh
God
yeah.
bless that. And like, so, what are some of the things you really like? You're really grateful now that you kind of made that transition because you're still a young man. So
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I don't. I go to bed sore and wake up crunchy, man. So I don't feel too young. But yeah, yeah. And fatherhood is one of those things. I said this the other day. I was thinking this the other day. But like, the kids don't really come with a checklist. Like gunners were air crews very checklist oriented, right?
right,
And kids, you sort of have to like figure out what works for you and go with it. Because there's all these people giving you all this advice about your kid. But I remember my parents gave me the best thing they could have gave me, and that they believed in me, and they prayed for me.
yeah,
So just being, like you said, present with my daughter, just being there
yeah.
for her and believing in her, it goes to me that's everything.
That's awesome, man. That's amazing.
Thank you.
That's amazing. So when you were writing the book, like people have always like, "Hey, write a book." Everyone thinks like, "Oh yeah, I'll try to write a book." I'm like ADD, ADHD, dude. I'm like, "Hey, there's a butterfly. I'm chasing it
I'm
around."
there with you, man.
Like it would, it
Yeah.
would be very tough for me to do it. So, d- did you kind of get into a rhythm, and did you kind of know the order you wanted to write in, or were you just kind of writing things down and then kind of compiling it?
So I knew like I had the roots and wing parts. Like I didn't even have the title Moonchild yet, but
Yeah,
I had a somewhat of a timeline, a flow with it, and then I had reached out at least where I thought I had enough for a book to a war journalist named Holly McKay, and she's in responding really quick. It was within minutes, and I was in Walmart
yeah,
texting, and the next thing you know, I got a phone call appointment, and I told her sort of my idea and the way I wanted to go. She's like, "Yeah, I'll do it," and so, a Word document back and forth, but basically she did a really good job of like, getting me to say the loud part out loud, and give my
yeah,
words teeth, and make it helping me make
absolutely.
sense of all this, right? And then start to finish pen to book in hand was about 7 months, and I had to add a lot
That's
more
good.
after, working with her. When I'm so thankful for her. And Robbie Grayson was a publisher. He recommended the actual title Moonchild, and because that was one of my favorite poems that I'd put in the Rita Clint poem in the first part. But yeah, it was a journey, it was experience, and sometimes, man, you just gotta pull that trigger. You gotta send it, man, and bleed it on a
Yeah.
page, and you'll feel better if you do.
Well, I'm not all the way through, but so far I think it's great, man. And one of the things I kind of went through just listening to another podcast with you on it is so you've come up with kind of an app or an idea for other veterans to tell their story and kind of talk into it, and then it kind of organizes that, right, to help them get the
Right.
whole publishing process done. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, the state just approved the name for the nonprofit, and the app would be called itself the debrief. And what I'm trying to do, I need some sort of big tech guru or somebody like that to help me out with this. But basically, you would speak into this phone or your app, and the veteran first responder, these uncommon type jobs, right? They could say everything and it would soft edit it for them, and then, for either free or very low cost, get it edited and published for either cheap or free. And I think it's
Yeah,
important
that's
that I'm sorry, good.
it's awesome. No, I was just saying it's a great idea. It's awesome. It's a
Thank you, I
really good
appreciate it.
idea. I think it makes a lot of sense. So we happen to know some tech people, so we
If you
can
do, man, I would love that, man. So thank you. Yeah,
yeah, we can talk offline on that. Another thing, have you ever heard of Operation Song?
I have not, no sir.
Yeah, so Operation Song, Mike Byer was on here. He's kind of the executive director. They're out of Nashville, and what they do is they pair songwriters with veterans about
Hmm.
their story. And
Uh,
I was gonna say I'd like to introduce you to them because I think Moonchild would be a really amazing tell your story through a song. And so they pair songwriters with the veterans. We're veterans families.
yeah.
It's anyone related to the veteran, and they write and create songs around it, and it's an amazing thing. And I see kind of what you're wanting to do
Oh yeah.
with your debrief, just flowing right into that and amazing, and getting the stories out of these veterans even to a broader media. So that's amazing.
Thank you, and I would 100% do that, man. That's an awesome idea, and I'm gonna definitely get with you about that. Appreciate that, and
Yeah,
I think writing is helping, and helping is healing. I found out, it's
yeah,
therapeutic because there's common struggles between all the veterans, and that sense of purpose. That's the main theme in all of these. A lot of my stories. So
yeah. I mean, I don't know if you know Brothers Keeper Veteran Foundation. Chris Cathers, he's an ex
yeah.
Green Beret, Delta Force guy, and it's basically was built to help prevent veteran suicide. And so I mean, one of the things I would love for everyone to do, we have such a broad veteran community now that's just doing really amazing things, is try to get all of us in
Oh yeah.
like a room or something and just like figure out like what we could all even do more, right? I mean, our role
Yeah.
is try to help tell stories,
Oh yeah.
but the reality of it is all you guys have the same heart, same mission, like, trying to help each other, and it's just amazing if we can harness all that energy, dude. It'd be amazing.
Oh yeah, some of the most creative minds too. Like I've thought about is veterans and first responders. These uncommon jobs, these unconventional jobs. That I think being
Yeah.
creative comes with that. Just the nature of it a lot.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So if you wanted to, so everyone needs to get out and get Moonchild. I mean, you can get it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. I mean, there's probably if there's any other places, like let everybody know. But I want to ask a couple of this questions to you about kind of getting through some things, if that's okay.
Yeah, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So is it Amazon and Barnes and Noble the main
Yeah,
places to
correct.
get it, or
Yeah, yeah, you can get on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. Then there's my publisher Robbie Grayson has it's called Trait Marker Media. He has it on the page there where you can go down and click the country you're in, the flag on it, and that's when it'll lead you to the Amazon link as well. So
awesome. So the audience to get out there. So, just if, and if you don't, if you're like, hey man, you're getting too personal, I don't want to do that. That's fine. I just, a lot of people struggle with to get through recovery and make the decisions to kind of, move forward. I mean, can you give, veteran, non-veteran? I mean, there's a lot of things going on that are non-vet related, like, just I know we talked about perseverance and and just keep going, but like, is there some things that you found, writing, obviously getting that out, what are some things maybe that really helped you when you thought maybe you couldn't be helped?
yeah, yeah. So I thought like risk is I think after it's all said and done, you have to take some risk, and we're all used to taking a little bit of risk, right? And I heard a quote, and it was some of the effect of you know let or what was it empires are built on risk, and then 9 to 5s are built on avoiding them. And I would like to say that, you know, legacy is built on taking risks, and 9 to 5s are built on avoiding them. Meaning, like like what we do in life echoes in eternity, man. And like being vulnerable, that's how you really get your story out, and that's how you heal. And once you do, and you bleed it on the page, like that's therapeutic, and you get to look at everything with a different perspective. And you're like that's everything, and getting other veterans
Yeah,
perspective and just thoughts on it, and it helps you grow.
yeah, that's great, man. That's great because there's a lot of suicide and just things that going on even more so today. I mean, when we got involved kind of with the Brothers Keeper veteran, but
Yeah,
like I didn't realize. I mean, the suicide rate for veterans is like through the
it's
roof.
insane. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
insane. So, and you don't hear that you don't hear that every day. You don't really understand. Stats. People throw stats around like, oh, 120% more or whatever. Oh, big deal. Whatever. Well, yeah, it's a huge
It's
deal.
yeah. Even one's a big deal, and I I think that after 2 decades of war and doing these uncommon things, the one thing I've learned is there's people that in my my life that the biggest thing the Air Force and military and this community gave me was I could call at a moment's notice, and I know they would pick up a phone. And
Yeah.
I like to say often, like, we surround ourselves by our four quarters, not 100 pennies, right? Those four
Yeah, I
quarters
love
that
that.
you can depend on at any time, man. That's if you've got that, if you got everything in the world. And I think checking on each other, right? Like, I think we are getting better as a community with that. And there's a difference between saying like, hey, like, we know each other more than anybody, right? And like saying, hey, like, how's it going, man? Versus like, hey, how are you doing, really, man? How are you feeling, right? So
Right.
I think that's went a long way.
Yeah, I mean, most men are like, I'm good, man. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
figure it
yeah,
out,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
got it. I'm fine. How are you? Oh, my leg just got blown up. I'm good, man. Don't worry
yeah,
about me. So I mean, we're kind of. I think it's just kind of in our nature to kind of do that. But you're
yeah.
right. And you got. I love that kind of. It's better to have four quarters and 100 pennies.
Oh yeah,
My dad always used to tell me, hey man, if you can count the number of good friends you have when you die on one hand,
yeah,
you had a good life. Not both hands, like one hand. And as I
yeah.
watched him through his life, and he was an outgoing guy and good guy and everything, but he had like out of those four quarters, he had two 50-cent pieces, right?
Oh yeah.
And they were good. They were solid, and I think so. I love that four quarters is better than 100 pennies. So
Yeah, yeah, that's man, that's awesome you said that. The other day I was on Instagram and it's one of my favorite reels, and I think the guy's name was like Joe Stan 44, and basically he's talking about the movie Tombstone, and that's his favorite movie, right? And he gets into this thing where he's like, Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp getting a shootout with the outlaws down by the river, and one of the outlaws asked Doc Holliday at the end of it, why do you do it, Doc? He goes, because Wyatt Earp is my friend. And he goes, well, I have lots of friends. And Doc Holliday said, well, I don't. Because he understood the
yeah,
value of if you have one or two people that you can really truly count on, then you've got everything in the world, man.
absolutely, man. It's not a. It helps to have numbers sometimes in a fight, but
Oh yeah,
it's always good to have somebody walking right beside you or behind you or in front of you. So
it's priceless for sure.
that's amazing. Well, I mean, you've been awesome. I'd love to, you and I to talk a little bit about some things we can talk offline, but I've got some things maybe we can jointly do, and we'll have all this in the notes where you can get the book. This will come out next Wednesday. So, I mean, first of all, man, I'm proud of you. You made it through. You're doing a good job. The good Lord is walking with you, and I mean, what more can you want, right?
Thank you, brother, and I'm proud of you, man. And I tell people that I don't believe in coincidences, and I think collaborations and collision happens for a reason. Whatever reason God's got for us, So it's a great meeting.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So stay on. We'll close it out. So everybody, you've been listening to Salty Meth Goat. We had Anthony Dyer on. Please go and check out his book Moonchild. Child. We will have that in the notes as well. You can get it, but it's a great story about what he went through, the operations he was in. It's pretty cool if you're an AC-130 fan. These gunships are they're pretty amazing. So I think if anybody heard that thing coming, it'd be a little bit scary. They would try to run and
Oh
hide.
yeah.
But Anthony's a good man, and we are grateful to have him on. So that's it. Let's go.